Redditors who have experienced being in a coma, what was the experience like? Were you able to comprehend time passing, or was it seemingly in the blink of an eye? Anyone who've experienced extended comatose, what's it like to time travel? My friend told me that while he was snowboarding he hit a tree, fell unconscious and was airlifted to hospital and in a coma for 2 weeks. While he was in a coma he remembers walking in a field, a wolf by his side, walking toward a tree in the distance. For days he wasn't getting any closer to the tree. Then suddenly he and the wolf got closer and closer until they were at the tree. The tree was beautiful and it had a face, but the face kept changing faces. From people he had met in the he past, to people he met later in life. The tree reached its hand out toward him and was holding a key. He grabbed the key from the tree, held it to his heart, and the wolf disappeared. The tree disappeared and he woke up. He now volunteers in a wolf sanctuary. I can't remember where, but I've heard similar stories. People climbing stairs endlessly, trying to reach an island by boat, and waiting for a plane to land. Only when they got to the top of the stairs, reached the island, or the plane landed and they got off did they wake up. I was born 3 months early and spent the first 6 weeks of my life alternating between a NICU incubator and ice baths for the extreme, prolonged fever. Although I obviously survived a difficult infancy, my immune system is questionable at best. I have suffered from unexplained fevers, FUO, fevers of unknown origin, off and on throughout my life. When I was 19, I contracted an often fatal infectious disease. My parents were traveling out of the country, so I was home alone, and by the time I realized that I needed medical attention, I couldn't move. It was during this period that I began to slip in and out of consciousness. My older brother lived a few blocks away with his wife and kid. He was trying to be cool and let me party my butt off while my parents were gone, but after 3 days of radio silence, he started to get worried and came to the house to check on me. He found me in my bed, unconscious, and radiating heat. He carried me down the stairs, put me in his car and burned rubber to the air. He broke 2 of my bones while doing this, but seeing as how I was 6 feet 1 inches, 180 pounds and literally unconscious, this is not surprising. And before you ask, I have no freaking idea why he didn't just call 911 and let the paramedics do it. I was in the hospital for 11 weeks, completely unconscious for 3 weeks and in and out of consciousness for 7 weeks. I have 6 or so extremely disjointed memories that, according to my brother and parents, take place over the next 3 weeks. One was of the sheer panic that ensued in the air once they got a DX and were trying to quarantine me and everyone who touched me. Another was of my parents standing over me weeping. There is absolutely no chronology to my memories themselves, but based on third-party accounts, I've been able to piece together the timeline of what happened to me. The moment that my parents stood over me weeping was right after the doctors told them to go home, get rest and hit the funeral home the next morning to make my final arrangements. They were standing there weeping, trying to decide what to do, if listening to the physician was the right call, when I opened my eyes and looked around for less than 1 minute before slipping away again. That was all the time they needed to decide. Frick that doctor. This is our kid. They never gave up and literally never left me alone again for the duration of my hospital visit. Remember those fevers I mentioned? The ones I have had since birth? Yeah, it turns out that a dangerously high, prolonged fever is what killed the virus I had. It also gave me thermal brain damage, but never mind, I'm alive. Just slightly dumber. I was in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks or so. I was on a crap ton of drugs and had some horrible hallucinations. An experience I'm told by the ICU nurses is very common. I knew I was injured in hospital. Apparently they kept waking me up every day to check my brain function, but was not aware of why, so spent a lot of time very confused, vague hospital-based nightmares. Also, some Game of Thrones hallucinations, because my brother visited and talked about the show at my bedside, and I fought a dragon as a result. I can't say exactly how much time passed because it was more than 2 years ago and I've tried to forget and be things from the outside broken, but from different times than you'd expect. A news story from 1 week into the coma felt like it was at the start of the hallucinations, but I may be remembering things wrong. The brain works in mysterious ways, especially when you're high. I don't remember waking up or learning about my accident etc. Though I'm told I had to be told every 30 minutes or so for the first few hours I was awake, as I'd start to panic and be confused. I only remember the day after I woke up, when I already knew what had happened. Would not recommend the experience to anyone, though I did later get a tattoo of a dragon to commemorate it. If you've ever been under general anesthesia, you know what it's like. That's a type of medically induced coma. If you haven't had that, it's not even like sleep. You're awake 1 minute and waking up from surgery the next with no awareness of what happened in between. Unless you wake up during surgery. That happened with me last time. I was having chest surgery, and I tried to sit up on the operating table. Scared the crap out of the med students. No pain, just confusion, and I was back under pretty fast. I was in a coma for 3 weeks nearly 3 years ago, nearly dying several times from double pneumonia and a strain of flu that was killing younger, healthy people. I remember precisely nothing. Little flashes of faces and pieces of dialogue, maybe. Everything I know about that period was told to me by my parents, BF at the time, and doctors and nurses. Maybe some people can hear what's going on around them while they're in a comatose state, but I wasn't one of them. When I awoke, I wasn't confused or anything. I recognized that I was in a hospital room, and I remembered being in there weeks before. It was the last thing I remembered. I thought maybe I'd been there a couple of days and had just slept off the worst of it. Then I saw the dry erase board on the wall in front of me where someone had thoughtfully written the date. My first thought was I am so fired. My second thought was I can't move. My third thought was I can't talk. What the frick is this thing in my throat? Get it out, get it out, get it out. Turns out the coma is the good part. The recovery afterward. Learning to walk again because your muscles have atrophied. Waiting for your voice to come back because you've been intubated all this time. Trying to pee without help. And oh man, trying really hard not to get depressed. Is the shit show. After I woke up, 1,000 doctors and nurses came in to gawk at me and call me a miracle because apparently that's how close I was to death. The ones that had helped me survive kept asking if I remembered them, which made me nuts. Like, I know they spent their entire work shifts for 3 weeks with me, but I was comatose, so sorry. No, I don't remember you, comma. My mom talked to me the whole time and read to me, hoping I could hear. I actually had brought a book with me to the since it's not like I was expecting the coma, so she found that and read from it. It was The Sexual Life of Catherine M. Holy crap, I never thought I'd tell this story on Reddit. I was in a car accident at 18 and in a coma for 3 months. A couple of weird things happened. First, I was fully aware of everything for a couple of days before actually waking up. I couldn't open my eyes or move or talk, but I heard and felt everything. It was terrifying because I honestly thought it would last forever. After 2 days of this I fell asleep, and when I woke up I was fully conscious and never more relieved in my life. I thought at first that I had just slept for 3 months, but after a couple weeks of being out of the coma I started having the weirdest, most vivid recurring dreams and flashbacks of literally being another person. I had never experienced anything like this before the coma. I had never had a recurring dream in my life, but since the coma I've had the same 4 or 5 dreams hundreds of times, and in each one I'm the same person but not me. They are freaky and I always wake up panicked and often find that I'm sleepwalking as well, and that also never happened before the coma. I'm pretty convinced that during the coma I'll live some other life in a super long and intense dream. It's the only explanation I can come up with. I was in a car accident when I was 17 and was in an induced coma for 2 weeks. I remember bits and pieces. I remember one thing in particular right before taking off the medication. I remember being told I needed to stop moving because I had been in a wreck. I remember looking around and seeing 2 midget doctors jumping from one bed to another trying to get to me. They were wearing full-size medical gear that dragged on the floor behind them. They got to my bed and put more medicine in me. I looked back and they jumped off the bed and started walking out the door, laughing. After I was woken from the coma I asked about the midget doctors. Turns out there wasn't any midget doctors. You were in a midget hospital, but then they moved you. Last year at the end of July my transplant kidney was failing and I had caught pneumonia. Doctors were like, "We're going to put you under for a few days." I was like, "What do you mean under?" Well, they told me and I called my parents across the United States. Little did I know I'd wake up 5 weeks later. Apparently it was a fight. I woke to my parents at my side. I just thought it was a day or two, but yay. 5 weeks had passed and no one told me it was September till I was up for like a week. Missed my 33rd birthday last year. Well, I had really vivid dreams that were mostly great. I'll go into detail about the dreams, mainly BC. I haven't really done it before. Traveling places, seeing things, crazy parties on charter planes with tigers and motorcycles. I can accurately recall about 5-10 of them. Then I had one particular nightmare that was really scary, that was like Mario meets dialysis in a 007 GoldenEye bunker. Mind you, my transplant kidney failed while I was under, so they had to put me back on dialysis without my acknowledgement. But that was the only bad dream I can recall. I remember swimming somewhere tropical like Hawaii or something and the water was really thick but I could still almost breathe. And then another one that was probably the strangest and most laughable. I remember being suddenly in some Asian skyscraper in some fast food joint of all places, trying to play this motorcycle game so I could win money to Uber back home. Then laughing to myself, BC, that would take a lot of money to Uber back from Asia. That one was really weird and felt like Inception or something. The freaking Matrix. In terms of input, 2 things stuck out. My mom on that plane telling me to not do drugs. And the other one was doing yoga with Bindi Awan. Well, when I woke in September I was still foggy, but I remembered all those dreams pretty accurately. I had thought I was just having a lot of strange dreams. The Bindi input was apparently BC. My parents had been watching television and she had been on Dancing with the Stars or was training for it or whatever. So basically I was atrophied to crap. Was out for 5 weeks. Didn't stand for 10 weeks. Didn't walk till 12 weeks. About a total of 7-8 months recovery, but still was rough around the edges for most of this year, 2016. Doing much better though. It was the single most horrible 2 weeks of my life. I was put in a coma for 2 weeks, and I heard everything. I screamed at myself to wake up, but I couldn't move at all. I stared at my eyelids for 2 weeks screaming to get up, but was completely paralyzed. I heard my family at my bedside. I felt my girlfriend brushing my hair out of my eyes. I felt the nurse give me a dry bath, but I couldn't move. It was the worst experience of my life. I had surgery. It was 9.5 hours. I didn't wake up. I have one memory of a nurse slapping me and screaming at me in the recovery room. Then nothing. It was like I was a TV that was unplugged. The next thing I knew, I woke up to a priest saying last rites over me. I am not Catholic. I croaked at him to frick off because I wasn't going to die. He flees. A nurse comes running in and says I have been in a coma for 4.5 days. I experienced nothing. I was here. Then I was gone. Then I was back. It was instantaneous. There was no sensation of the passage of time. I'm sorry for laughing, but I burst out at the image of a solemn priest, and this creature wakes up. Its words are, "Frick off." Sounds like the plot of an interesting horror. Really long, vivid dream. I pretty much relived entire chunks of my life ranging from hours to days long. I was out for a month. I was in a medical coma due to going septic from a kidney stone. Previous to the coma I was basically put in a room, and every time I fell asleep a crash cart and doctors woke me up. They brought me to surgery and I woke up a week later, but during the coma I was having a nightmare that was so real that when I did come out of it I was convinced it happened to me. I dreamt that I was transferred from the hospital to a doctor's house to recover. They had me in a recliner that couldn't sit up from, and there was a fireplace with a TV in front of me. In the dream it was someone's birthday at the doctor's house, and anytime I called out to ask for help I was treated roughly and rudely. When I did wake up I noticed a few things in my room resembled the dream. The bed I was in made it nearly impossible to move. Although my legs were useless and I had to relearn to walk. The room had glass windows in front of me and on the side. And there was a nurse that I remembered that was the only nice person in my dream. My husband said that I seemed lucid and he would ask me questions and get answers. But I don't remember any of that. I went in the night of my son's birthday at the end of July and got out mid-August. It was heck. In 2008 I had to undergo a series of operations to remove a brain tumor that was very close to my brainstem. After the first operation, I apparently developed some sort of trouble regulating my blood pressure and it kept spiking and falling. So the decision was made to put me in a coma. This has never been explained to me, and my memories are very hazy. If any neurologists, neurosurgeons here could tell me the logic, I'd love to hear it. What I mostly remember is having a bad night where I couldn't sleep because the nurse kept fiddling with my IV. My dad was there, but I had no sense that anything was wrong. I was just tired. Finally I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was very weak and sore. It felt like I had slept 14 hours, but it was something like 12 days. I have no memories of the interim at all. Just like surgery. 1 second you're there, 1 second you're waking up. You never even know you're gone. In a weird way, this settled all my fears of death too. Either the lights go out and we literally never know it, or there's some sort of eternal reward or punishment. If it's lights out, well, I've been there, and there's nothing to fear. If it's a reward or punishment, Pascal's wager applies. Since there's no way to know which belief system is right, pick the one that works for you. Don't be a butthole, and pray. Although I have never been in coma, I did go through an experience which is one of the strangest things to happen to me. When I was 19, I visited my aunt during the summer holidays. I was playing my cousin's PlayStation, although I was tired from the journey since I didn't get proper sleep in the bus and had been awake for over 24 hours. I suddenly started getting an epileptic seizure and fainted. My mom and aunt screamed and tried to wake me up. The neighbors came in hearing the noise and took out their car to take me to the hospital. They brought me to the hospital and I didn't regain consciousness until almost 3 hours later. The crazy part is this, which my aunt told me later, was that when I lost consciousness, I was still able to get up, put on the jacket, get out of the door and in the elevator, got in the car, sat on my way to the hospital, opened the door of the car and walked into the hospital before collapsing on the bed. I had absolutely zero recollection of any of this after I regained consciousness. It's referred to as being post-ictal. Bits and pieces of consciousness are there so as to get the body to safety, but it's not what we would refer to as alert or intact. Most people do not recall this post-ictal phase. I always say that being in a coma was great and I'd do it again. I could totally hear a lot of what people were saying though, but I won't hold it against them. It's scary to think your friend or sibling or kid might die. I had awesome coma dreams, but waking up was really traumatizing because I couldn't walk or talk and adjusting to reality took a really long time. I was only out for 8 days, so I'm not sure how unique my experience was. I'm really curious of what you heard them say. I can only imagine what it's like to speak to someone you love, thinking they might die. You have been visited by the rare dream doggo. Comment sweet dreams doggo and you will have good dreams. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.